So for those of you that are joining us on tape, I just went over practice payroll problem number 1. That is due on Thursday, March 2nd. And I tell you how to set it up, and then I've just given a little visual representation how I would like that to look. And that will be due on Thursday. Today we're going to learn how to do FIT. You don't know how to do that yet. Okay, so I believe, and again, for those of you that just joined us, this is on Moodle in the first section, practice payroll problem number 1. I believe we left off on talking about a W-4, didn't we? Does anybody remember where we were, roughly? I think we were talking about W-4s. Can anyone tell me what a W-4 is? Were we talking about W-4s?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. Okay, who can tell me what a W-4 is? Why is this not going down? I'm like super stubborn.
It's a form that you fill out for the employer to know what your status is.
Yeah, your employer doesn't know whether you're single or married or how many withholding allowances you have. You have to tell him or her. The way that you do that is through a document called a W-4, and it's called an Employee's Withholding Allowance Certificate. And we talked about on Thursday, I believe, we talked about single, married, or married but withhold at a higher rate. We talked about filling out the worksheet on line 5, and that leads you to how many withholding allowances. If you're single and you don't have any kids, your only options are 0 or 1, right? Right? 0, I don't have any withholding allowances. That's going to have more money taken out of your paycheck and a higher refund or less owed at the end of the year, right? And then additional amounts. I just did a tax return, talked to the gal this morning. I'm like, oh my goodness, for the second year in a row, you owe $3,000, $3,000 to $4,000 bucks. And I said, I have here in my notes last year, I told you to do what on your W-4? What would I have told her to do last year if she owed $3,000 bucks on her taxes? To withhold more, so what should she have done with her allowances? Increase them or decrease them? No, decrease them. Yeah, so it's her husband, and 2 kids. Well, if they're each taking 4 allowances, they're not getting enough tax held out of their paychecks, obviously. So I told her this year, instead of mucking around and seeing, trying to hit the nail on the head, I'm just going to take $3,000, divide by 12 months because she's paid once a month, and that's the number I want her to enter in line 6, additional amount withheld from every paycheck. So that at the end of next year, what's going to happen? Hopefully they're going to be even. They're not going to owe and they're not going to get anything back, right? Okay, and then does anybody remember what claiming exempt means on line 7?
Probably didn't pay anything.
Yeah, it's basically for if you didn't, and that's what it says. Last year I had a right to refund everything because I had no tax liability. This year I expect a refund of everything because I don't have a tax liability. So it's like I'm a part-time student, I'm a full-time student, I'm a part-time worker, I make 10 grand a year. I don't want you to take income tax out of my paycheck. I want that extra, 48 bucks a month or whatever, right? So I claim exempt. Okay, we went through this. This is if you're a dependent on someone else's tax return, and this is where we left off. So somebody comes to work for you, and you give them a W-4 to fill out, and they don't get it filled out. Now you're getting ready to run the first paycheck. What do you have to do? You have to withhold at the highest rate, single and 0. Can an employee change his or her W-4? Sure. Do you have to get that into the software and process it accordingly? Sure. I changed my W-4. I'm just a weird enough person that I kind of run a projection of my tax liability, usually around October, November. And if I need more money taken out, I'll change my W-4 for the last couple months. If I've gotten too much taken out, I'll change it and give myself a little bonus in November and December. They don't love it, but, everybody doesn't do that. Only that's weird financial people. But they do have to change whatever you ask them to do in the software. Okay, you can electronically. We've already gone over this. You can have an electronic W-4 system, but then you've got to have some sort of secure, cyber secure network and access, so other people can't get on and get your people's obviously payroll information and their social security numbers and such. Okay, so what we've been talking about so far is taking federal income tax out of your paychecks, right? We're going to learn how to do that in a second here. What about other sources of income, like now I'm retired and I get a pension check, or I'm unemployed and I get an unemployment check? Can you have FIT withheld from those checks? Absolutely. And unless you know how to do estimated payments and you want to muck around with that, you probably should ask. If you have a pension, they will treat your withholding as if you're married with 3 unless you fill out a different W-4P for pension to tell them such. Same thing for like Social Security. A lot of people don't realize, and all your Social Security isn't taxable, but up to 85% of your Social Security benefits may be taxable depending upon your other income in retirement. So again, do you want to have a big tax bill if you're retired? Of course not. You'd rather get less every month. So you're going to have a little piece of your tax bill paid up, and come out of your Social Security benefits. Okay, so we're going to turn to those tax tables I asked you to pull out. You came in late, Daniel, so we're in Appendix T as in Tom in the back of the book. So first thing I want to point out is there's 2 sets of tax tables. And by far, in a way, the easiest ones start on page T5. And whenever you can use these, you want to. And these are called the wage bracket tables. Okay, the wage bracket tables. And it says that on the top of page T5, wage bracket. And then you can see kind of in the top there's a little box, and it says, this is for people that are paid weekly and that are single, right? So you flip to the next page. These are the tables you use for people that are weekly and married. And the next page is, you're paid bi-weekly and you're single. And you can imagine in what fascinating progression these tables go, right? Bi-weekly married, semi-monthly single, semi-monthly married, they're monthly married, monthly single, blah, blah, blah. It's all very self-evident, but you do have to make sure you get to the right table. And everyone's like, yeah, I can read. Yeah, I know you can read, but take that extra microsecond to make sure you're on the right table, because you will never get the right answer if you're on the wrong table. Okay. So that's all there is to know about this, and we'll practice a couple of these, but they're super easy. So, for example, like, say I'm paid semi-monthly, and I'm married, and I make $1,500 bucks. So if I'm semi-monthly, and I'm married, I make $1,500 every paycheck, and I claimed 2 on my W-4. How much federal income tax are they going to take out of my paycheck? $84 is correct. And you can see the column heading all the way at the top left says if your wages are at least 1,500, but not more than 1,520, and the number of withholding allowances is 2, right, then it's 84 bucks. Pretty easy. The second set of tables is called the percentage method, and those start on page T2 and T3. And it says on the top of page T3, percentage method. Now, you only are going to go to these tables because they're harder, you have to calculate, they don't just give you a number, so why would you do that? The only time you're going to go to these is if you have somebody that's quote-unquote highly compensated. In other words, when you try and look their taxes up on the easy tables, they're off the charts, so to speak. They make too much money. It says go to the percentage method. Or if they're compensated in some weird scheme, like I get paid once a year or once a day or semi-annually, which I mean, I can't say I've ever seen any of that. It's, you know, really the reason we're going to be going there is because somebody's highly compensated. Okay, so we have two choices of tables. You use the wage bracket if you can. If not, you go to the percentage method. So let's start with this gal. So you're going to want to get out your calculator and your pencil and your notes and your tax table. And we're going to start with our friend Nani, which is Hawaiian for beautiful. And her annual salary is $40,144. And she's paid bi-weekly. And her W-4 shows she's married with 4. I want to know how much to take out of one paycheck. So you're going to have to do some prep calculations before you can go to your tables. So how much does she make on each paycheck? Yeah. How many times a year is she paid? 26. So 41.44 divided by 26. She makes $1,544, and she's married and she's bi-weekly. So what page are we on for the tax tables? T8, I think, yeah. And 1544, and how many allowances? So I got, what did I get, 60 bucks? Are you sure you're on the right table? Oh, you're down one row. And these are little tiny numbers, so if you need to put a straight edge under them, yeah, you're probably like, you need to bring not only your light, but your magnifying glass.
No, you're right, 60.
Yeah, so sometimes, like, I'll just take, and I really do this because I've got old lady eyes, I'll put a straight edge under it, so I make sure that I'm actually, you know, coming across and picking up the right number. So basically all this is saying is that for her paycheck, this is what her FIT withholding is. And if she does it, if Nani has nothing else going on in her life, no other incomes or deductions, and in fact she's entitled to all 4 allowances, on her tax return she should theoretically be about even, paying in 60 bucks every time she's paid. Okay? Never turns out that nice and neat because there's always more things going on. But on the whole, that's what would happen. Yeah? Alrighty, anybody need any work through on that? Next one. John has got an annual salary of $84,400. He's paid bi-weekly. His W-4 shows married with one. What is his FIT withholding? What is his FIT withholding? What's the issue with our buddy John? He's off the table.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go figure out how to use these other tables together. The first thing you have to know is you cannot go straight to the tables on page T3. You have to go to page T2 first and subtract whatever number they give you times the number of withholding allowances. So on page T2, what number are you picking up from that table? 155.80, because that's how often he's paid, right? But how many allowances does he have?
I
Just-
thought it said five.
Just one. So in this case, you just take 155.80 times 1. But if he had, 3 allowances, you take 155.80 times 3. Okay, so it's that number for each withholding allowance. So subtract that number from his biweekly paycheck, and that's the number we're going to take to the next page. That's the number we're going to take to the next page, not the actual gross of 3246.15, but 3246.15 minus 155.80. The number we're taking to the tables is $3,090.35. So then the next question is, which of those little tables am I on over on the right? Anybody? Yeah, 2A or 2B? 2B. And I am going to read from you. It says, if your amount after subtracting the allowance is over 1,042, but not over 3,225, then the amount of tax is $71.30 plus 15% of the excess over 1,042. Excess of what? Excess of this number. So let's write it out. Don't do any calculating. I want to make sure we can all write this out algebraically together, and then I'll let you calculate it. But the key, it doesn't seem like it should be that tough, but for some reason, folks seem to have a hard time getting this calculation. So what it's saying is FIT equals what? $71.30, then what?
Plus 15%.
Plus 15% of what?
Excess
The excess of what?
1,042.
No, the excess over,
Over,
but the
sorry.
excess of what over that?
The 3090.
Was that the number 3090?
Yes.
3090.35?
Yeah.
Yep. So obviously figure out this number first, so you're really working your math from right to left. Because you always work from within the parentheses. So figure out that, because this is where they jump into the 15% bracket. Up until that, they're in the 10% bracket. And you can see where they jump each bracket, 25, 28, 31, 33, 36, 39.6.
Okay, so I got 2,048.
Okay, does that make sense on a paycheck of $3,090? I mean, you gotta finish the math now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay, so like that wouldn't be reasonable that you're holding out $2,000 of tax on a $3,000 check.
15%.
15% of this, whatever 2,000 odd number, plus the 10% that they figure out for you. Okay, so he's jumped brackets into the 15.
So
That's it. All right, let's try a couple more of those and then we'll call this good. It's pretty straightforward, but the two places where students will get confused, well, or just screw up, is you'll forget to go to page T-2 and subtract the allowance values. You can't go to the tax tables till you've subtracted how many allowances they're claiming, right? Because if I've got 0 and you've got 5, we're obviously getting different amounts of tax taken out of our checks. So make sure to go here first. And then the second piece of it is make sure you get to the right damn table again. Okay? And then always, always write out the whole thing. I will tell you, students are like, oh, I know how to just do this on my calculator. Well, that's great. But, you know, just work with me here and take the extra 12 seconds to write out the algebraic formula. Okay? All right, go ahead. Then you've got either a very bad calculator or there was input error.
Well, I did 39.35 minus 10.42.
Yeah.
And I got 20.48.35.
Yep.
And times that 0.82.
Multiplied it by 0.15, yep, and then you've got to hit your equal sign and then plus 7130.
Yeah, and I got 378.
That's the right answer.
I'm like, it's 35.
Okay, that's okay. I do have to laugh when students are like, this is what I got to tell you. It's not like this is a critical thinking class. Well, I shouldn't say that. This isn't a discussion class. This isn't like issues in sustainability where there's opinions and we all come in with our own, you know, preconceived notions and we've all read different pieces. It's like there's only one answer. This is it. Okay, next one. Maggie, let's say Missoula, what would she do to make that much money? She's probably a pediatrician. And she's paid monthly, and her W-4 shows married with 2. And I want to know, what is her FIT withholding? So don't have the answer showing, just have the data. Okay, so 336 divided by 12, monthly wage, 28 grand. I could eke by on that if I had to. And then you've got to subtract from the 28,000, what number do I multiply by 2? 337.50 from the table of withholding values, right? And then that's the number that I pull over. I'll let those of you who are still calculating finish up. So, did you guys get 67.33.12? So again, these aren't tough, but you just have to go through the plan, through the system. All right. I'm gonna, well, let's try this one. This one's a little bit different. This is one of those examples where you're gonna have to annualize and then pull it back down, like we did when we were practicing in chapter 2. So I'm quoted a monthly salary, but they run checks bi-weekly. So if she earns $36,000 a year, what do you have to divide by to get her check? Yeah. So this one's piece of cake, right? You can just go to the wage brackets. Okay, so when you're doing practice payroll problem number 1, that's due on Thursday, you know how to calculate OASDI, you know how to calculate HI, be mindful of capping, of course, and then now you know how to figure fit. And we're not doing any state income tax. So there's really nothing else to think of, easy 12 points. Okay. Alright, we're not going to take time to do another one. What I do want to show you, or what I am going to take time to do, is go back and tie this in with our discussion on HSAs, flex plans, 401ks. Okay, remind me. Remind me, on an HSA, do I have to pay FICA on it? You do. You don't get to subtract your HSA before you calculate FICA. Do I have to pay FIT or SIT on it? No. What about a flex plan? Do I have to pay FICA on it? No. Do I have to pay fit or sit on it? No taxes on a flex. Nothing. Nada. What about a 401k? Do I have to pay fit? I'm sorry, do I have to pay FICA? You do. Do you have to pay fit or sit? All pre-income tax. What is the difference between these three? A 401k, a simple, and a 403b?
Simple's a small company.
A simple is only for companies with 100 or fewer employers. And there's a lot less like rigorous reporting, and they cost a lot less to set up and maintain. And so if you've got a small business, 20 employees or 60 employees or 6 employees, you're going to set up a simple probably. The only thing you need to know about a simple is it does require an employer match. That's not negotiable in a simple with parameters. Okay, so simples are the same. 403B is for what? It's for nonprofit. Okay, so how does this all fit in? Let's go to our person that I had the information up here on that I said we're not going to do. And let's do this guy, or gal, or I guess it's a guy, Fairheart. You know Fairheart. At the lake? Yeah, you do. Your folks are friends with him. Anyways, he's an Iranian guy. He lives right above us. Anyways, I always try, because you get bored writing the same old names over and over, so you use people from your life. I had to actually ask him how to spell his name. Okay, so let's do Fairheart's salary, but let's also say that he funds his 401k $10,000 a year. Calculate his fit. He funds his 401k to the tune of 10 grand a year. So first off, are they going to take that out of one paycheck? No, they're going to take it out of how many? 24. So whenever I give you like an annual flex amount or an annual 401k amount or an annual HSA amount, the first thing you got to do is what? Got to convert it to the check. Okay? All right, what do we got? What did I say, 10 grand a year?
Yeah.
In fact, we should probably run his whole paycheck. Is that what it was on the other screen, 208.88? 485 divided by 12.
You're off. 208.33.
Thank you. Semi-monthly?
Yes.
And he's married with 4, right? Paid semi-monthly?
What is that for 16?
That's the 10 grand divided by 24. So 401k contribution, 10 grand annually, divided by 24 checks, right? Go ahead. Yes, of course it should. As I preach reasonableness, I put a very silly number up there. So my point is what? I can't just take this number to the tables, can I? You've got to subtract the 401k because you don't pay fit or sit on it. Now, what do I have to subtract from this number? Yeah, the allowances, exactly. 4 times whatever the 168.80.
675.
Okay, now here's your kicker. Go find the fit on, you know how to find the fit now, right? But then you've got to tell me what his net paycheck is. And let's just say it's only his second check of the year. So you need to fill this out and tell me what his check is. And I purposefully left a space here. You've got to think about what goes in there. Okay, what was he, married and semi-monthly, right? So I got the tax. Do I have a second on that number?
Aye.
Great, okay. So obviously I had to subtract the 401k, I subtract the allowances, and then I went to the tables. Okay, finish the check. And I told you it was the second check of the year, so you're not worried about him capping yet, are you? Anybody catch what the last thing is you gotta subtract? Yeah, the money he puts in the 401k, don't forget to do that. I'm not gonna take time to add this all up, but whatever that X is, that's the net paycheck, isn't it? Now, this is exactly what practice payroll problem number 1 is gonna look like. You know, that was for Hart, and now we're gonna run Ethan's check, and so on and so forth. Questions? Okay, the couple things to remember when you've got a 401k or an HSA or a flex, or you could actually, well, you couldn't have all of those because you wouldn't have a flex and an HSA, but you could have a couple of those. I put money in my 403b and my flex. Flex you don't pay any tax on, right? But my 403b, I only get to subtract for fit and sick calcs, not for FICA calcs. You with me? So you've really got to pay attention. I mean, you just got to know this, don't you? And really, there's honestly, the only outlier is this. In other words, the whole reason we've been talking about all these other guys is because you don't pay fit or sit on them. The only thing that you get out from underneath FICA on is a flex. All right, we'll try a couple more of these as we go, but I want to do some more, get through some more slides. Is there any question about process here? All righty. If you're at home looking at this, I very much recommend that you work through these. I got this from page T-2 where I took the number of the semi-monthly withholding allowance of $168.80 and multiplied it by 4 because he had 4 withholding allowances, right? So this, and then this was the 401k number that I just verbally gave you, 10 grand a year. On a quiz or a test, pay attention. Am I giving you the per paycheck amount or an annual amount? And it'll make sense one way or the other. He's not going to put in $400 a year. He's going to put in $400 a paycheck. He's not going to put in 10 grand a paycheck, right? So the number should make sense. Okay, next issue. Supplemental. We talked about these last Tuesday. Today's Tuesday, last Thursday. These are things like your severance pay, your discretionary bonuses. Actually, one of my kids just got a bonus check today, and I was talking to him on the phone last night, and I said, they're going to take 25% of that. What? I said, well, you'll get it back. I don't want to get it back. I want it now. Well, of course you do. But why? Yeah, he's like, why? And I'm like, it's a bonus check. They're cutting it as a supplemental paycheck to him. Okay? Severance pay. Thank you very much for your service. See you later. Bonuses. Some kinds of commission checks. Retroactive checks. Okay? Things like that. Here's your check, Lisa, for the $200 difference between what you should have been making the last 6 months and what we were paying you. Okay, great. Now, how do you withhold on supplemental wages? There's a couple different ways to do it. If, for example, say and I'll just use these numbers because they're fresh in my head. Say that his regular gross paycheck's $2,000, and they're giving him a $5,000 bonus. They can just add that all together and go to the tables with $7,000, okay? As if he got paid $7,000 every other week. What's going to be the problem with that?
Take out a lot.
Oh my God, that looks like he's making 14 times 12. That's making him look like he makes $168,000 a year. He doesn't make $168,000 a year. He's just getting one bonus check. He makes $48,000 a year. I'm just making these numbers up. Okay, so that's one way you can do it, and employers will do that because it's stinking easy. You just go in, you change the gross pay field, your software goes and picks the numbers up from the tables, and boom, right? Now, so that's one way you can do it, and that's how your employer does it. Then you just wait till the end of the year to get your money back. Or if you're me, you adjust your W-4 for the next 2 or 3 months and get more of your money out to make up for all the overage they took. Or if you can clearly separate it, like in the example of here's your $2,000 paycheck and here's your $5,000 bonus check, they can just run a separate check and take a flat 25%. Unless you're happening to get a bonus check of more than $1 million, in which case they take 39.6. Okay, so when I said to them they're going to take a flat 25%, this is what I was talking about, because this is what most people do.
How does he get it back?
When he files his 1040,
You overpaid.
files his tax return.
There's no taxes on his bonuses.
They're taking 25% federal income tax out of the $5,000.
So why does he get it back?
Why does he get it back? Oh, because he's in the 15% tax bracket, and they tell us 25. Yeah, he doesn't get it all back. I'm sorry. He gets back the differential between his tax bracket and the 25%. And the reason they choose the 25% is that's right in the middle of the tax bracket, right? You got 10, 15, 25, right? We've been through that. So 25 is like right in the middle. It's a great number if that's the bracket you're in. It sucks if you're in a lower bracket because then they keep your money all year until you get it back. And it equally sucks if you're in a higher bracket because then you're going to owe not only back taxes but penalties on underpayment. Okay? So you've got to be, and people just aren't, savvy about this. Like looking at your own money, and because people come at the end of the year and be like to their employer, you over withheld or under withheld or whatever, and it's like the onus is on you to read your own pay stub, right? And to know what's going on. Which is why you're all in this class. Okay, so what I'm saying here, let's try one of these real quick. What I'm saying is, let's say that I'm paying Quinn a check, and he makes $56,300 a year. And he's paid weekly, and he's married with 3. Then, on the same, so what I'm after is this total fit. So here's one thing that happens. And then on the same day, but separate check, I write him his annual discretionary bonus for 6% of his gross. And they take the flat withholding. And what I want to know, how much is Quinn going to lose to federal income tax withholding on this run? So 2 things are happening. He's getting his same old paycheck. And then he's also getting a separate discretionary bonus check cut for 6% of his gross. And they're taking the flat supplemental rate on that. So I want to know what his total FIT withholding is for both of these checks. Anyone need to clarify? Sorry. So the number I was after, what's his total FIT bike going to be? $929.50. Yeah? Okay. Questions? Go ahead. I took 6% of his gross paycheck was his bonus. $33.78. Yep. If they had just put this $33.78 onto his regular paycheck, that would have been treating it like he's getting taxed at about $4,000 a week. Okay? And that tax that they withheld would have been probably another $500 or $600. You see that?
So you took his yearly rate and divided that by 52 to get up how much you got a week.
Yes, sir.
And then you took 85 off of that,
Yep. I went to the tables for that.
and then that gave you which number?
The 85.
No, the tables did. And then
The
your
tables gave me 85. Then I calculated his bonus as 6% of this number, right? So 56.3 times 6% is 33.78 was his bonus check. And I said they just held a flat supplemental from that, so they took 25% of that, which is the $929. Isn't it?
It's the 844.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say that doesn't look right. 844.50, and then those two numbers together total the 929.50. Okay, we've got one more set of numbers to crunch out to get through today. This is a number-intensive day, and I will tell you on Thursday when you come in, you should be prepared to do any of this for me. In other words, go home and have a look at this. Wink, wink. Okay, next topic. Stick with me here. This one is completely different from anything we've ever talked about. This is, normally we start with gross pay and we subtract all of our taxes to get to a net check, right? That's how most of us, our payrolls run. God bless. But what if your employer wants you to have a set amount of money in your pocket? I want to give you a check, but I want you to have the $5,000. Now what are they doing? Yeah, you're working backwards. That's exactly what you're doing. You're starting with the net paycheck and you've got to gross up. You've got to find all the numbers above it. Okay? Does that happen? Heck yeah, that happens all the time, particularly in executive compensation where I want you, I was just dealing with this recently, a guy that lives in Palo Alto, $1,200 a month car allowance. So he's talking to his employer and they're like, yeah, they negotiate $1,200 a month car allowance. And he goes, no, I want that on my paycheck to pay my car payment. So they're not giving him $1,200 minus taxes, are they? Because then he wouldn't be getting $1,200, he'd be getting $736.29. He wants $1,200. And he was asking me, what's the terminology? And I said, you need to tell him to gross up your check. Okay? How does that work? So if you want to give an employee the intended amount, you have to gross it up. For example, let's say that I've got a guy named Dov that works for an employer, and the employer wants Dov to get $700 a month to make his car payment. How's he going to do that? Does anybody have a feel for what we're going to do at all? These are kind of interesting numbers. So first off, if you're doing this, I mean, we've still got to write them a paycheck, right? And we've got to make a 941 deposit, do all the same things we always do. And believe me, every year when I get people's books to do their taxes, there'll be one or two people that will try and do like Christmas bonuses without running them through payroll. What's the problem with that? What is the problem with that? Why can't they do it? You guys all work for me. I want to give you each $500 at the Christmas dinner. Why can't I do that? And just write you a check and call her good and write it off as a business expense. It's income. It's got to be on your W-2. You've got to pay what on it? You've got to pay what on it? You got to pay FICA. You got to pay... Yeah, but then I don't get to write it off. So I'm not going to do that as the employer. Right? 500 times 90, that's a $4,500 expense. I don't get to write off times my tax rate. That just cost me another $1,500. But nice try. And people try and do that too, but then they hide it in weird places and I always find it. Okay. What else do they have to pay? FIT. And if you live in Montana, you also got to pay Sit. Okay. So first off, this is how you set it up. You've got to write, I'm going to give you the steps. Step 1 is write your equation. So to work one of these problems, you have to set up your whole equation just like we always do. Step number 2, plug in what the net paycheck is. Okay, so write your equation and then plug in what the net check is. Step number 3, write next to each of the taxes what the rate is. What percentage of my gross paycheck are my taxes going to take up? Well, what percentage is OASDI going to take up? So I'm going to write these as decimals, and you'll see why. So write them as decimals, not percentages. 0.062. And 0.0145. And what did we just learn about supplemental? 0.25. And in Montana, the supplemental SIT rate is 3%. So that's step 3. Write down all of your tax rates. Step 4, stick with me here. If all of these take a percentage of my paycheck, what's left for my net check? What percentage? So you guys take a second and figure that out. If this is my tax bite, what percentage, and that's number 4, is left? Yeah, so figure that out and tell me what percentage is left for my net paycheck. I believe that is correct by eyeballing it. .6435. Is everybody 100% clear on the first 4 steps?
Okay, how'd you get 0.6435?
How much are the total taxes? 35.65%, right?
Right.
Okay. So if my gross paycheck is 100% of itself,
So then just
equals that. Okay.
oh, okay.
Daniel, question? Okay, but make sure, I mean, I might be moving a little fast number-wise because I want to get through this, but you need to understand, you need to be with me conceptually what I'm doing. Question? No, I said ignore state taxes, but if I didn't say ignore state taxes and I said it was in Montana, then you would have to use the 3%. I've got to tell you that. So anybody know what step 5 is? It's not a multiplication, because I'm going to get a number smaller than that then, aren't I? I need to gross it up. Yes. So what's the algebra? Yeah, you've got it. You just got to move the x over to the other side now.
You gotta divide 700
Yeah.
by that
Yeah.
0.6.
That's in fact exactly what you have to do. You've got to take what you want your check to be and divide it by what percent of the gross that is. That gives you your gross check. You just didn't move your 0.6435 over to the other side. So calculate your gross, and once you get your gross, can you get all your taxes? And make sure it comes to 700 bucks? Yeah, so do that and then make the 941 deposit. So do the check and then make the 941 deposit. And for those of you that are working online, it's not enough to just watch and listen. You need to be doing it at home too. That's why there's all these exciting pauses on the tape. Go ahead.
The year?
I'm sorry.
Is this for the year?
This is a Christmas bonus check, or this is a monthly car allowance check. But his payment's $700. So
Right.
that's what I want him to get in his pocket.
Okay.
And if you did it right, the math all turns out. You can check yourself. If the gross check minus the taxes don't come to $700, then something's wrong, right? And if you've got a rounding error, just plug in a couple pennies wherever you need to. And then make your $9.41 deposit for me, please. So then I'm going to add it all up, and I can see I've got a penny off somewhere. I don't care where you plug it, I'm going to put it into sit. $700, so I know my math's right? The last thing I asked you to do was to make the $9.41 deposit. FICA, FIT. And FICA's the total of these two numbers, right? Carlos, question? Okay, if I were you, I would review this, because we did a lot of numbers today. Nothing's, inexorably hard. It was just kind of a lot, right? For Thursday, the payroll problems due. I would do your discussion and review questions as well from your homework. And just as a heads up, next Tuesday we're going to start the CLGL project. I believe everybody is now on the little access code list. So that's good. Okay. Have a great rest of your day.
Am I gonna have a problem if I'm not here on Thursday?